Hey everybody. So, boy, do we have news today. Boy, do we have something to talk about. Erik Karlsson has signed long-term in San Jose with the San Jose Sharks, an 8-year deal worth $11.5 million per season with San Jose. So he is now the highest paid defenseman in the NHL. And I'll tell you, I did not see this coming. I did not think that the Sharks were going to re-sign Karlsson. And I'm not going to say that I don't love this deal. I think this is a very risky move by the San Jose Sharks. A very risky move. If the Sharks end up winning a Stanley Cup over the next, with Karlsson and Burns and this core group, Evander Kane, Logan Couture, this group intact, if they win a cup with that group intact, then yes, this all will have been worth it. However, if they don't win a Stanley Cup, if San Jose does not win a Stanley Cup with Karlsson and Burns and Couture and Kane and this core group that they have right now, this is setting them up for big problems in the future. Erik Karlsson making $11.5 million per year for the next 8 years, almost until he's 40, is absolutely insane. He's 29 now. This deal will go until he's like 37. Brent Burns is locked up on a long-term deal at $8 million per year until he's 40. Marc-Edouard Vlasic is at $7 million per year until he's almost 40. So that's only 3 players, 3 defensemen. And, God, almost over $25 million in cap space between them, right? Well, 11.5 plus 15 between the other two. That's $26 million, $26.5 million for 3 players, all locked up for at least the next 5 years, Burns, or 6 years. Burns is the first one up, and Vlasic and Karlsson are extended beyond that. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. If this doesn't work out for the Sharks, this is going to kill them long term. And one of the things that really, I really think about is that Karlsson's had injury problems for the last few seasons, and Erik Karlsson really isn't the player that he was in Ottawa. Especially, before the injuries started to pile up, but he's had foot problems now. He's had the groin problems. He had the Achilles issue. Karlsson's had injury issues. You are signing a 29-year-old defenseman who repeatedly is injured to an 8-year deal until he is in his late 30s. I mean, that is extremely risky. And if you watch Karlsson in the playoffs this past season, I wasn't overly impressed. Yes, the offense is there. Erik Karlsson is going to put up points. That's never been a problem for him. He is not good in his own end. And when he was playing injured, and especially in the second, in the second and third round of the playoffs, he was not good in his own end. He was a turnover machine. He couldn't get the puck out. He doesn't cover anybody defensively. Erik Karlsson is almost a defensive liability. In Brent Burns is not as bad, but pretty similar. And now you have 2 of those guys on the same team. I mean, I'm not huge on Erik Karlsson anymore. The injuries and the way he played in the playoffs, especially the last couple of rounds, I'm like, I don't see where he's worth $11.5 million per year. He's a very good point producer. He's awful in his own zone. Awful. He doesn't play defense. And now the Sharks have their top 2 defensemen who aren't really defensive guys and are more out there to score goals and rack up points. You've got Burns, who wants to score 30 goals as a defenseman, and you've got Karlsson, who's a 70-point guy, but they're not good in their own end. And that really came back to bite the Sharks, especially against St. Louis in the conference final. Burns and Karlsson in their own end killed them in that conference final. And that's what it's not about the regular season for the San Jose Sharks anymore. Not with this core. The regular season, they should be good in the regular season. It's about winning Stanley Cups and winning in the playoffs. And you're not going to win Stanley Cups if you can't play defense. And Erik Karlsson doesn't play defense. And he's gotten worse, I think, over the last couple of seasons. Again, that goes along with the injury issues. He couldn't skate in the conference final this year because he was so badly injured, but he's injured all the time now. It's every year there's an issue. And you sign that to an 8-year deal? If this was a 4-year deal, it would be Erik Karlsson until he was, 33, 34 years old. If this was a 4-year deal, I would have been like, okay, the Sharks are going for it. They've got a window here. They've got a very good core group. They've got some good young players like Timo Meier, Kevin LeBanc, other guys like that coming up. They've got a window here to do this and win a Stanley Cup or maybe multiple. But 8 years for a guy who's consistently injured, almost 30, and doesn't play well in his own zone as a defenseman, this is a risky move for San Jose. They are going all in on winning with this group. And if it doesn't work out, they are going to be in big time trouble long term. Because I can guarantee you right now that by the end of this contract, even this is an 8-year deal, even 5 years into this contract, Erik Karlsson is not going to be worth $11.5 million per year. By the time Brent Burns is 38 years old and in the last couple of years of his contract, he's not going to be worth $8 million a year. By the time Marc-Edouard Vlasic is in his late 30s, he's not going to be worth $7 million a year. These contracts at the end are going to be very, very bad. And I worry that the Sharks are getting themselves in a situation here like the Anaheim Ducks are in right now, where they have Corey Perry and Ryan Kessler and Ryan Getzlaf locked up on these massive long-term deals that are now finally getting to the end, but those players aren't worth anywhere near what they're getting paid at this point in their careers. And I feel like that's going to be the case with San Jose when Burns and Karlsson get to the end of these contracts. They're not going to be worth nearly what they're getting paid. And that's going to set the Sharks back long term. So this is absolutely a win now move. This is absolutely we need to win a Stanley Cup in the next couple of years type move. And if they don't, this is going to be a huge failure, and it's going to be a huge setback for the franchise long-term going forward, because that is a ton of money for one player. And between Karlsson, Burns, and Vlasic, they have a ton of money tied up between 3 defensemen. And then when you add in Logan Couture at $8 million per year and Evander Kane at $7 million per year, there's another $15 million. So between 5 players, not including a goaltender, 5 players, Couture, Kane, Karlsson, Burns, and Vlasic, you have almost $40 million in cap space tied up. That's insane. This core has to win now. This team has to win with this group, or they are in big, big trouble long term. But very, very risky move. I'm worried about Erik Karlsson turning into a Ryan Kessler type situation. When Anaheim got Ryan Kessler, he was one of the best shutdown forwards in the league. He was a great two-way player who was, a solid point producer at the offensive end and one of the absolute best shutdown centers at the defensive end. And then the injuries started. And Kessler got injured badly, and he got injured multiple times badly, needed a lot of surgeries, needed to relearn how to skate at one point. And now he's making over $8 million per year, and he may never play NHL hockey again. He probably will never play NHL hockey again because of all the injuries. And he had He barely played this past season, and he had like 14 points the whole year. He got destroyed physically, and look what happened. Now you're paying him that much money for 14 points in a season, and now he may never play again. I feel like by the end of Erik Karlsson's contract, it's gonna be a similar situation where the injuries are going to pile up. It's going to be a major problem. He may have a career-ending injury at some point, and they're going to be on the hook for $11.5 million. I think it's too long for this much money. If they were going to give him this much money, it should have been a 4-year deal. If he wanted 8 years and wanted that long-term stability, then they should have come down on the number, and it should have been, maybe $10 million a year, maybe 9.5. But this, to me, is a very, very risky move. It's too long. It's too much money for a player that is kind of a question mark at this point, at least with his health, and really has struggled at times because of the injuries. And that's just my opinion. Listen, Erik Karlsson was going to get this money. He was going to get this deal from somebody. It was just a matter of who. I would not want to be the team that gave it to him. I would have let him walk in free agency and let someone else do this and let someone else take the fall when this ends badly, because I really think this is going to end badly. So I would have been hands off in this situation. I would not have gone after Erik Karlsson at this kind of money. I think there are other ways to build a team. The St. Louis Blues just won the Stanley Cup, and they do not have an Erik Karlsson on their team. Alex Pietrangelo is a very good defenseman. He's not Erik Karlsson. St. Louis did it with size, team defense, physicality, and getting grade A goaltending from Jordan Binnington. Erik Karlsson does not guarantee a Stanley Cup for the San Jose Sharks, and with this kind of deal and with the cap situation that the Sharks now find themselves in, it's Stanley Cup or bust over the next few years. And if they don't get it, it's going to be a huge failure. So that's just my opinion on the Erik Karlsson deal. I think this is a very risky move for the Sharks, but we'll see long term if it pays off or not. That is a lot of money and a very long term for an almost 30-year-old defenseman who's already dealing with repeated injury issues. But the upside is obviously there with Karlsson. It's just a matter of, does he reach that on a consistent basis, or does injury hold him back? And that's my opinion. With that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Remember, we are on our road to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.